Would you trade your child for $50,000 if it meant saving her from the streets? Nia, a 25-year-old widow with only $3.37 in her wallet, did, believing it would give her daughter a brighter future. But when she tried to see her again, the wealthy woman who adopted her child framed her for stalking, and the court, manipulated by money, sent Nia to prison for 20 years. Here's the truth no one talks about. The woman didn't just adopt Abeni, she stole her. She rigged the justice system to erase the mother and raise the girl like a trophy. This story comes from sealed legal records and one leaked audio clip that shook the entire Isoke empire. In this video, you'll witness how a mother survived 2 decades clinging to a tiny shoe in a photo, how a daughter uncovered the lie she lived in, and how 3.37 became the price of redemption. At 45, Nia is a janitor, when fate leads her back to Abeni, now a rising CEO. Neither knows the truth, until one chilling sentence is caught on tape. She's your blood, but her identity belongs to me. Abeni freezes, then breaks down, and when she whispers, "I remember that smell. Mom, you'll feel it too. Don't skip this story. Because sometimes $3.37 isn't just spare change. It's everything someone has left to reclaim their life." Rain pressed against the window like restless fingers tapping from the other side. The glass had long since surrendered its clarity, now stained with years of city grime and someone else's memories. Inside, in the yellowing light of a dying bulb, Nia sat cross-legged on the floor, her knees pulled tight to her chest, a blanket draped over her shoulders like armor too thin to protect against anything real. She held out her palm, 4 coins, a single crumpled bill, $3.37. Her fingers trembled around them, as if the coins were made of something colder than metal. The child on the mattress behind her stirred. Abeni, 3 years old, still slept with one fist curled under her chin and one foot exposed, twitching now and then in a dream she hadn't shared. The mattress sagged in the middle, its springs long rusted, but she slept soundly. Perhaps because children were better at ignoring the weight of the world when it pressed down hardest. Nia glanced at the door. The lock had cracked 2 weeks ago. She jammed it with a broomstick every night. Then a knock. Not urgent, not gentle, just inevitable. She froze. Another knock, louder this time, sharper. Nia stood, pulling the blanket tighter. She didn't need to look through the peephole. She already knew the rhythm of those knuckles. Babakato. Ms. Nia. His voice slid under the door like steam. "It's the 28th. I don't want no fuss. Just the rent. You understand?" She opened the door a crack. His frame filled the doorway. Gray coat, shiny shoes that didn't belong in buildings like this, and breath that smelled faintly of cloves and cheaper bourbon. "Mr. Cato, 800. I'll have something by next week. You said that last week and the week before. You have 3 days. A pause. 3 days, he repeated, or you and the girl are out. No more grace. She nodded. It was the only gesture left to her. As his footsteps faded, the rain pressed harder. The blanket slipped from her shoulders as she shut the door. She turned, and her eyes caught the television. A hand-me-down that only showed 3 channels when it felt generous. A headline flashed across the screen. Isoke Holdings unveils new luxury tower in downtown Accra. A smiling woman, elegant in ivory silk, stood next to a glittering building that looked like it belonged on another planet. Nia turned the volume up. Chewi Dantos. Chairwoman Isoke stated this marks a new era of urban rebirth and private philanthropy for the capital. Isoke Holdings is expected to create over 400 new jobs in the next quarter. The child on the mattress coughed. Nia muted the TV. The coins in her hand clinked softly as she walked to the table and placed them in a glass jar. She'd been calling it the Hope Jar. Now it looked like a tomb. A knock came again, but softer this time. She frowned. When she opened the door, a woman stood there in a cream coat without a speck of rain on it. Her umbrella was already folded. Her driver waited behind her, engine idling. "You must be Nia," the woman said. Her voice had the calm of someone who always got what she asked for. "I'm Isoke." The name didn't land immediately. It floated, shimmered. Then Nia's breath hitched. "Isoke." From the television. "I don't have time for pleasantries," the woman continued. "I came with a proposal. You can think of it as an exit, a lifeline, perhaps." Nia didn't move. Isoke stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Her heels didn't make a sound on the cracked linoleum. "I know about your situation. The rent, the overdue bills, the missed calls to that place on Nkrumah Road. I also know you have no living family left, and that child," she gestured toward the sleeping girl, "deserves more than this." Nia's fists clenched. "What do you want?" "I'm offering you $50,000 in cash today." The silence thickened. "In exchange," Isoke said, "you will sign over guardianship of Abeni to me. My attorneys have already drafted the paperwork. She'll be enrolled in private school by the end of the week. She'll have doctors, tutors, security, a home. She'll grow up safe, educated, refined." Nia's jaw trembled. "No visits," Isoke added. "No contact. Ever. It must be clean." I can't." "You're not choosing between good and evil, Nia. You're choosing between a future and a ruin. One of you gets to live. It's that simple." She pulled out a folder, cream-colored, heavy. "You may keep the phrasing. It's temporary guardianship, legally flexible, but the terms are firm." The rain had stopped, or maybe it hadn't. Nia couldn't hear it anymore. She turned toward the girl. Abeni shifted in her sleep, murmuring something unintelligible, then reached blindly for a small object, her shoe, a single tiny worn-out sneaker, the rubber coming off the toe. Nia felt her throat tighten. Her eyes dropped to the folder. She hadn't signed anything in months, but she picked up the pen. Her hand hovered, then moved. Her name looked like someone else had written it. When she looked up, Isoke was already stepping outside. "Be ready by morning," the woman said. "My driver will come." She left the door open. Nia stood there for a long time. The jar of coins still sat untouched. The room was silent, except for the small sound of the child's breath, even entrusting. She didn't sleep that night. She lay on the floor, the sneaker clutched to her chest like a relic. By dawn, the black car had arrived. Abeni was still blinking sleep from her eyes when the driver opened the door. The girl turned to look back. Nia knelt beside her, tying the second shoe on her foot, her hands steady even as her insides buckled. "I'll see you again," Nia whispered, though no one had asked. Abeni smiled faintly, holding her mother's finger for one last second. Then the door closed. Nia didn't cry right away. She stood in the doorway long after the car vanished, the rain starting again in soft threads. Only when she turned and saw the little shoe, its matchless twin left behind on the floor, did she fall. Not faint, not collapse. She folded slowly, as if gravity had finally won. The shoe pressed into her ribs as she curled around it. No one came, and the door stayed open, not because she left it that way, but because it no longer knew how to close. Rainwater still clung to the sidewalk like breath that wouldn't leave. Across the street, behind the thinnest veil of steam rising from a roadside gutter, Nia stood still, her coat buttoned wrong, the collar upturned, her fingers shaking inside her sleeves. The school gate opened with a slow mechanical groan. Polished brass, guarded, untouchable. Children poured out in neat little uniforms. Pleated skirts, navy blazers, shiny shoes clicking over marble tile and pavement like rehearsed applause, a sea of voices and privilege. And then a flash of white, Abeni. She wore a starched white dress that didn't seem to bend when she moved. Her hair was braided into elegant rows with tiny golden beads that clicked softly as she walked. She held a lunchbox shaped like a lion. Her steps were light, almost floating. Nia's throat closed. Her voice didn't rise. It came out more like breath slipping from a wound. Abeni. The girl paused. She tilted her head. She didn't look across the street. Not quite. But she sniffed. The breeze carried with it a ghost of lavender soap, the same kind Nia had used when Abeni was a baby, mixing it with warm rainwater in a rusted bowl. Abeni blinked slowly. Something in her turned for a moment. Just a flicker, recognition, then gone. A woman's hand reached down and pulled her away. Swift, possessive. Beneath a wide-brimmed hat and silk scarf, Isoke's face was unreadable. She didn't look across the street. She didn't need to. Her hand on Abeni's shoulder was enough. It said, "Look forward, walk on." The car was already waiting, engine soft, driver stiff-backed. They disappeared inside. The door closed. Nia's arms wrapped around herself like memory was trying to crush her ribs. That night, a letter arrived. No stamp, no sender, just her name written in tight, expensive ink. Inside, a warning from Isoke's attorney, Adeyemi & Co. Any further proximity to the minor child Abeni, biological or otherwise, will result in immediate legal action. A temporary restraining order has been initiated, pending full court review. This communication serves as formal notice. She read it by the glow of a street lamp, standing outside the community shelter where she now spent most nights. She folded it twice and put it in her boot. She didn't cry. The next day she returned to the sidewalk, farther this time, 2 blocks away, behind a street vendor's umbrella. The steam from frying yam hit her face. She didn't call out. She just watched. The 3rd day, a man in a dark suit pointed a phone at her, snapped 3 pictures in 2 seconds. She turned and walked away. The 4th day, 2 men in security jackets waited near the gate. One had a clipboard. The other held a small folder with her photo inside. The 5th day, the police came. She didn't resist. She didn't speak until Officer Mensah asked her to confirm her name. "Yes," she said, her voice low. "Do you understand the charges?" he asked. "I understand I stood on a public sidewalk." "Ma'am, that sidewalk was within 150 meters of the school grounds. That violates the protective order." I didn't say a word to her. "There's video," he said gently, "and a complaint filed. Multiple incidents. You've been categorized as a repeat offender." She sat in the back of the police vehicle, staring out at the children laughing on the playground. Voices piercing the air like they belonged to another reality entirely. The trial was swift. Footage played on screen. A woman standing, watching, walking. Voiceover by the security guard, Kofi, stated clearly, "She's been here every day. It's targeted, obsessive." A woman on the jury folded her arms. A man adjusted his glasses. The judge's face did not soften. When Nia took the stand, her hands trembled slightly. Her words were even. She looked back, she said. She remembered the smell. "The smell?" the prosecutor said. "Lavender soap," Nia replied. "I used to wash her hair with it." She flinched when it got in her eyes, but she always asked for more bubbles. "Miss Nia," the judge interjected, "this is a matter of legal boundaries, not maternal recollections." Silence stretched. "She's my daughter," Nia whispered. The room didn't move. On the final day, as judgment neared, the prosecutor cited not just the videos, but her prior record: homelessness, unemployment, failure to pay rent. "Your Honor, Sty," the lawyer said, turning. The child is now in a safe, stable environment. This woman's repeated intrusions are a threat, not of violence, perhaps, but of disruption, of instability, of emotional coercion. The judge tapped the gavel once, gently. "Miss Naya," he said, his voice like stone under snow, "you are hereby sentenced to 20 years incarceration, with possibility of parole after 12, effective immediately." A low sound escaped from Nia's chest. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even loud. It was the kind of sound someone makes when the last bit of their name is stripped from their body. "I just wanted to know if she's okay," she said. But the courtroom was already standing. Bailiffs approaching, a door swinging open somewhere behind her. They didn't let her keep her shoes. They didn't let her turn around one last time. As she was led through the corridor, a small speck of yellow caught her eye. A sticker on the tiled wall, half torn. A lion. Just like the one on Abeni's lunchbox. She stared at it until it disappeared behind the closing door. The alarm blared at 5 NTM sharp. It didn't rise. It didn't fall. It just screamed, flat and endless, like something mechanical had learned to imitate pain. Nia's eyes opened before the sound reached her. She was already awake. She had been for hours. The bunk above her creaked as another woman sat up. Steel-framed, bolted to concrete. 42 beds in a room that once held 20. Nia slid out from the lower bunk, her knees stiff from the cold. Her bare feet touched the floor, rough, gritty, always damp. One of the guards barked her name. She stood in line. Gray uniforms, shaved walls, light bulbs that hummed like flies. A tray slid toward her, a scoop of porridge, no salt. She didn't eat it, not anymore. In the workyard, she kept her head down. Daylight cracked through the clouds like something fractured. Tools clinked. Women coughed. Somewhere, a bird called out, but no one looked up. Nia wiped her brow and kept moving. Leather gloves too big, her palms burned, the wheelbarrow stuck in the mud. By her side, Mama Deka bent over a crate of bolts, humming some forgotten hymn in a voice like rusted copper. "You got your face all twisted," Mama Deka said without looking. "That mean you thinking again?" Nia didn't answer. Mama reached into her bra and pulled out a folded scrap of something. Newsprint, wrinkled, yellowed. "You'll want to see this." Nia hesitated. She took it. The headline was faded, but the photo was sharp. There he was. Judge Okoro. He was shaking hands with Isoke, smiling. Same woman who took her daughter. Below, a caption. Justice Okoro joins Isoke Holdings as chief legal consultant after decade of distinguished public service. The article dated back years. 5, maybe more. Nia's eyes scanned the text. Phrases jumped out like teeth. Conflict of interest waived. Strategic partnership. Pro bono advisory. Her hands trembled. "Now you see," Mama whispered. "System don't break. It folds you inside." Nia folded the paper and tucked it into her bra. She didn't say thank you, but Mama smiled anyway. Later that evening, alone in the cell, she pulled out the photo from her pillowcase. It was the only thing she'd brought in with her. Smuggled during intake, tucked inside the hem of her coat, a single photograph, slightly torn at the corner. Abeni, age 3, standing barefoot in the kitchen, holding a spoon too big for her hand. Nia stared at it until the edges blurred. She had written letters every year, every birthday, every January 3rd. She folded them carefully, licked the stamps, sent them to an address that never answered. Each one came back with the same message stamped in red. No such recipient returned to sender. She stopped writing after the 10th one. At night, when the lights clicked off, she would whisper her daughter's name like a prayer, or a curse, or a key that no longer fit any door. During roll call, she memorized every number called before hers, as if numbers meant anything in here. She knew who had children, who had none, who still dreamed, who had already buried everything worth dreaming for. On the 12th year, they moved her to the textile room. Less labor, more sewing. It didn't matter. She didn't keep track of years anymore, only remembered days by what broke inside her. And then one day they called her name, loud, clear, not like a scolding, not like a threat, like a beginning. Guillaume Titonde stood at the gate, holding a brown paper bag with her ID number on it. "Miss Nia," he said, "you've been granted early release. Special review, behavior, time served." Her body didn't move at first. Her mind reached backward, as if checking whether she had forgotten a crime worse than the ones already recorded. "Today?" she asked. "Now." They gave her the bag. Inside, a faded shirt, cracked shoes, a scarf she didn't recognize, and the shoe, tiny, worn, the left one, still soft with age. She didn't ask how it got there. She held it like a holy thing. She stepped into the sun. For a moment, the light blinded her, not because it was bright, because it didn't hurt. She took a step, then another, and then she realized there was no one waiting, no child running up the walkway, no hand reaching out, no voice calling her name, only silence, open and flat and endless. Freedom. It didn't feel like a door opening. It felt like falling through the floor. The elevator door slid open with a sigh. Polished chrome, backlit ceiling. The scent of citrus cleaner barely masked something colder underneath. Concrete, glass, the kind of wealth that didn't breathe. Nia stepped in, clutching a mop handle like a cane. Her shoes squeaked against the marble. The cart rattled. A drop of water slid from the bucket and vanished into the joint between two tiles. Floor 42. She hadn't meant to look up, but the logo on the wall was everywhere, burned into glass, etched into the elevators, stitched into the uniforms. Isoke Holdings, like a brand on flesh. She hadn't spoken the name in 20 years. Now it echoed around her. She gripped the mop tighter. Keep your head down. Clean what you're paid to clean. Invisible is safe. But then the elevator dinged again, and someone stepped in, heels, sharp, measured, a scent, rose water, vanilla, paper. Then a pause. Nia shifted sideways automatically, giving space. She didn't glance up until she did, and saw the face, youthful, sculpted, calm in a way only money could teach. But her eyes, there was something in the way they flicked toward Nia and then held too long. Something caught. Not a stare, not even suspicion. Just stillness. The elevator began to rise. They stood side by side. Nia could hear the other woman's breath, controlled, pacing itself like the beats of a speech rehearsed too many times. Then Nia saw it, a mark, barely visible, just behind the curve of the woman's left ear, a crescent-shaped birthmark, faint, but hers. Time didn't make her forget it. She had traced that mark with her pinky finger each time Abeni slept against her chest. It had been the one thing no one else noticed, until now. Her hand on the mop handle tightened, not from fear, from something raw, something buried, alive and clawing up. The elevator stopped. Ding! The woman stepped out. Her heels echoed through the hallway. Then she turned. "Would you like a cup of tea?" she asked. Nia blinked. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice raspier than she remembered. The woman smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "You're new, right? The cleaners rotate floors often. You look like you haven't had a break." Nia nodded slowly. "I'm Abeni," the woman said, extending a hand. It landed like thunder. The name fell heavy. Not because it was said, but because it had been locked away for so long it felt foreign in someone else's mouth. Nia didn't shake her hand. She couldn't. "I'm Nia," she replied. "Just here on night shift." Abeni gestured down the hallway. Pantry's always empty this time. Tea machine's glitchy, but the mint flavor still works. Nia followed. The room was glass-walled. City lights beyond the pane spilled like rivers of gold. Inside, it smelled of lemon soap and sterilized ambition. Abeni poured 2 cups without asking which Nia preferred. She set one on the table and sat. Nia stood. She couldn't move farther. Couldn't sit in a chair she wasn't sure she deserved. "I've seen you before," Abeni said, studying her. "Your eyes. I remember things by eyes." Nia said nothing. "I don't usually talk to staff," she added. "Not because I don't want to, just everything's scheduled, rushed, polished." She sipped her tea. Her hands trembled slightly, but only when they weren't holding anything important. Nia finally sat, slowly. The steam from the cup blurred her vision. Abeni stared out the window. "It's strange," she said. "This tower, it's always cold, even when the sun hits it. I've lived in 7-bedroom houses but never felt warm." Nia's fingers curled around the ceramic. It burned her skin, but she didn't let go. "You work for Isoke Ventures?" she asked. Abeni nodded. "I run a fund there. Investment in early-stage humanitarian tech. I write reports about saving lives while wearing shoes that cost more than rent." A bitter smile. "She raised me to lead," Abeni continued. "She called it shaping potential. I think it meant shaping silence." Nia looked at her, hard. "I don't think you're as silent as she'd hoped," she said. Abeni laughed. "Just once." "You're probably right." She stood, walked to the window, and placed a hand against the glass. "You know what I miss?" she asked. "Feeling small. When I was small, I felt safe, because someone else would make the decisions. I didn't have to know how ugly the world could be." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't even remember what she looked like. My real mother. Just smells, soap, smoke, maybe singing." Nia closed her eyes. Her breath caught in her chest. "Mint tea's not bad," she managed to say, steadying her hand as she lifted the cup. Abeni turned. "I'm glad you think so," she replied, and the moment cracked. Just slightly, not enough to change anything, but enough to feel the weight shift. In the hallway outside, someone laughed. A shadow passed behind the pantry's frosted glass wall. Time ticked forward again. "I should go," Nia said, rising. "Right," Abeni nodded. "Your shift." They walked together down the hallway. When the elevator opened, Abeni didn't step in. She hesitated. "I felt safe," she said suddenly. "Just for a few minutes." Nia didn't answer. Her fingers tapped the mop handle again. Then Abeni turned, walking away, her heels softer now, unsteady, and Nia stepped into the elevator, alone. The doors closed, but the mop handle in her hand, wet from hours of labor, shook slightly. Not from exhaustion, from the effort it took not to fall to her knees. The temperature shifted before the woman appeared. Not the air itself, but something colder, quieter, as if all movement in the hallway had been vacuumed out and replaced by tension so thin it sliced without sound. Nia felt it before she saw her. She was wiping down the chrome railing outside the executive meeting wing. Her gloves were damp. The smell of lemon disinfectant coated her fingers. Her reflection warped across the glass panels beside her. Then a figure stepped into frame. White suit, pearl pin, no wrinkles, no creases, not a single misplaced strand of hair. Isoke. She walked like someone who'd never needed to rush. Every step was deliberate. Heels silent against the marble, but somehow louder than thunder. She stopped, not at the door, but directly in front of Nia. Their eyes met, and everything stopped breathing. Nia didn't flinch, didn't bow, didn't move at all, just stood there, holding the cloth like a flag she refused to raise. Isoke's eyes flicked downward, once, then back up. "You still here," she said softly. I buried you in silence years ago. Nia didn't speak. You think brushing floors makes you invisible? Isoke continued, her voice low, velvet stretched thin. But ghosts don't go unnoticed, especially when they start touching what's mine. She stepped closer. Nia didn't retreat. Not this time. Behind the frosted glass of the meeting room, someone passed by. A shadow. Just a blur. The door was ajar. Isoke turned and opened it wider. Come. Nia followed. The room was empty. A long table stretched like a runway. Chrome legs, black glass. A row of leather chairs. One flickering downlight cast a white pool onto the center of the table. Isoke closed the door behind them. But what she forgot, or chose not to notice, was the red blinking eye in the corner ceiling. The camera. Quiet. Patient. She walked to the head of the table and placed both palms flat. I know what you're trying to do, she said. I saw her face. That softness. That doubt. Nia stepped into the light. I didn't say a word to her, she said. Not one. Isoke leaned forward. Your face speaks louder than mouths. She circled the table slowly. I gave that girl everything. Her education, her future, her name. I polished her into something this world respects. You gave her silence, Nia said. The older woman froze. You think you can stand here and reclaim what you threw away? I never did. You signed the paper. That wasn't consent. That was survival. Isoke laughed once, dry, no humor. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep better? I don't sleep. Isoke's smile vanished. Good, she said. Because when this ends, sleep won't be something you can afford. Through the glass wall, just beyond the fog of the hallway's shadow, a figure paused. Miss Abeni, Human Resources, holding a folder, reading. Then glancing up, she saw them. She saw Isoke's stance, the sharpness in the posture, the tension in Nia's spine, and something registered. But she moved on, quiet, unobtrusive. Isoke turned unaware. She stepped closer to Nia again. Their faces inches apart now. I could erase you with a phone call, she said. Push one button, and you're gone from this place. Nia didn't blink. You already did that once. Isoke's jaw twitched. You think you're brave, but this is pity you're chasing. You want her to look at you with mercy, but she belongs to me now. She eats what I provide. She breathes what I approve. She's not a brand. She's an asset. Silence. And then Nia said quietly, You can't own love. Isoke inhaled sharply. Tonight, she said, backing away. After your shift, parking level 4, we end this. Quietly. And then she left. The door clicked shut behind her. Nia was still staring at the spot where her breath had fogged the glass. On the table, her rag had fallen. The water spread slowly. A perfect ring. Behind her, in the ceiling corner, the camera's red light still blinked. Later that day, Abeni was called to the HR floor. She arrived with her tablet in hand, unaware of anything out of place. Miss Abeni met her at the door. There's a request from upstairs, she said cautiously. A directive. Abeni's face shifted, not surprised, but alert. She wants me to fire someone. Ms. Abeni didn't answer. Just placed the folder on the desk. Nia's name, bold, clean. She's a cleaner. No security violations, no misconduct, but she trailed off. Abeni flipped through the file. Photos. A schedule. One note written in different ink. Proximity risk. Unsettling presence. Potential history. She wants her gone, Abeni said finally. Abeni closed the folder. No, she said. Miss Abeni looked up. There's no legal cause. She's demanding it. She can demand whatever she likes. But if I'm going to fire someone, I need a reason I can live with. She stood, that's all, and walked out. Abeni watched her go, then turned toward the frosted glass wall. Her reflection fractured across it like something split in two. Back on floor 42, the lights had dimmed for the night shift. Nia stood at her cart, replacing a bottle of cleaner. Her hands didn't shake. From the far side of the corridor, Abeni approached. She didn't speak, not yet, just stood there, unsure. Then she said, "I don't know what this is." Nia looked at her. "But I know when something's wrong." Abeni glanced at the hallway camera, then at the door to the service elevator, then back at Nia. "You should be careful," she said, and walked away, not quickly, but with purpose. Nia stood still, watching her go, then looked down at her gloved hand. The water bottle inside her cart had a thin crack. It leaked onto the towel below, a dark circle growing like a silent alarm. That night, as the clock struck midnight, the underground parking lot buzzed with silence. Neon lights flickered. Shadows stretched in corners they weren't supposed to reach. Level 4, empty, except for the black car parked by the exit and the woman standing beside it, white coat, again. Nia stepped out of the elevator. She didn't run. She didn't hide. Isoke turned to face her, and the metal gate to the garage hummed closed behind them. The 4th basement level smelled like rain that never reached the sky. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, humming low and cold. Their greenish cast smeared shadows across the concrete. Water dripped from a pipe in the far corner. A thin fog clung to the walls, caught between silence and electricity. Nia stepped out of the elevator. Her shoes scuffed against the floor, the sound too soft to echo. She clutched the strap of her bag with one hand, the other curled into a fist. Ahead, the lot stretched like a ghost town. Rows of empty parking slots and polished black SUVs with eyes that didn't blink. Isoke was already there, standing beside a long, matte vehicle, engine off, phone in hand. No driver, no guards, just her. Her coat hung open like a flag lowered at half-mast. When she turned, her heels cracked like branches under snow. "I thought you'd run," she said. "I don't run anymore," Nia replied. Their voices didn't travel far. The damp air ate sound like hunger. Isoke walked forward slowly, circling Nia the way one circles a flame they can't control. "I gave her everything," she said. "What did you give her? A moldy mattress? A jail sentence?" "She was 3, Nia answered, "and I had $3 to my name." Isoke stopped. Her hand twitched. "She is mine, do you understand that? Mine by investment, mine by influence, mine by law." "No," Nia said. "She's a person, not a contract." Isoke laughed, but it sounded like it hurt her throat. "You poor thing. Still clinging to the idea that love is enough." "It's not," Nia said quietly. But silence isn't either. From the far wall, unnoticed by either of them, a figure watched. Abeni, half hidden behind a column, her body cloaked in shadow, breath held. She hadn't meant to follow, but something in her feet had moved before her mind could argue. Her phone was still in her hand from a text she'd tried to send. The screen still glowed. She hadn't realized it was recording. Then it slipped, a muffled thud. The phone fell from her pocket and hit the ground behind the column. Screen facing upward. Still active, still recording. She froze. Down in the dim garage, Nia turned slightly, eyes flicking toward the sound. Isoke didn't notice. "Did you ever tell her the truth?" Nia asked. "That I was alive, that I wrote every year." "She didn't need the distraction," Isoke snapped. "She needed to rise." "You trained her to fear softness. I trained her to survive. You trained her to forget me, because remembering you would have broken her." For a moment, silence. Then, "You say she's yours, but she's not." Her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she tilts her head when she's thinking. "You didn't give her that." Isoke stepped closer. Her voice dropped. "I erased your name. I buried you. I paid the judge. I rewrote every piece of paper with ink she never knew existed. Konbe jo la maumu kwaba, nheng ten twoi no thwok ve to. From behind the pillar, Abeni gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide. The words slammed into her chest like a wave she hadn't braced for, and at that exact moment, Kofi entered the garage. He didn't see them. He was humming something off-key, tapping his ID against the Barry reader. The red light turned green. The mechanism clicked, and with it, the garage's ambient recording system activated. The timestamp blinked. The microphone embedded in the barrier system captured it all. I don't care what's in her blood, Isoke continued. I own the story. I shaped the myth. She will not remember your name unless I allow it. Nia's voice cracked. I don't want to be remembered like this. Then disappear again. A sound clattered behind them. Abeni stepped out from behind the column. She was holding her phone in both hands, chest rising fast. Isoke froze. Abeni, she said, but her voice failed. The younger woman stepped forward. Her fingers trembled. I heard all of it. Isoke tried to speak again. She couldn't. Nia stared, not at Abeni's face, but at her hands, the way they clenched the phone, the way her shoulders quivered. Abeni took one more step. I never needed your protection. I needed the truth. Nia opened her mouth to say something, but Abeni held up a hand. I'm not ready yet. Then she looked at her mother, but not with rage, with something softer, like grief. She looked at Isoke again. You made me forget, but my heart remembered. She turned the phone screen toward them. It was still glowing. The waveform still danced. Recording, the silence broke open like a fault line. Abeni's fingers slipped. The phone dropped. The sound of it hitting concrete echoed louder than anything else that night. But no one moved to pick it up. They just stood there. 3 women. Between light and shadow, between silence and proof. The city outside the glass pulsed like a patient on life support. Lights blinked red and white along the skyline, reflected in the polished conference table like distant fires across water. Inside, no one spoke. No one. Abeni stood near the screen, arms steady at her sides. Her fingers hovered over the laptop like she was afraid it might burn. On the table in front of her, a small black speaker, a glass of untouched water, and a velvet pouch. Across from her, 6 people sat. Ms. Abena, eyes lowered, back straight. CFO Ngozi leaning back, one brow raised. Diallo from the board, silent, impassive, hands steepled in front of him. Nia seated in the corner, her palms pressed into her lap so tightly they had turned white. And at the end of the table, Isoke. Her earrings caught the light like knives. Her face was stone. Only the tightness of her jaw betrayed her. I'll just play it once, Abeni said, then pressed the space bar. The speaker clicked. For a second, only ambient noise, a hollow hum, a buzz from a motion sensor, the faint clatter of heels against concrete, and then Isoke's voice. I buried the woman who gave birth to you. You were mine from the moment she signed. Her voice echoed faintly in the room, not dramatic, just precise. You think love raised you? No. It was structure, obedience. I gave you shape. She would have fed you dreams and watched you starve. Silence. The static returned. Then another voice, small, worn. Nia. I just wanted to know if she was happy. Then a beat of silence. A chair creaked. In the recording, the sharp crack of footsteps. Then, that girl is your blood, but her name belongs to me. Abeni hit stop. The room stayed still. No one looked directly at Isoke. She didn't blink. Her fingers tapped once, then stopped. Her voice came out low, deliberate. Out of context, selective, taken in emotional duress. CFO Ngozi spoke, calm and curious. The file has a timestamp, pulled automatically by the garage system, and it appears to have backed up to central servers that same evening. Berry logs confirm. Abeni nodded. Quiet. I didn't upload it. Isoke's eyes flicked toward her. Then who did? No one answered. Diallo shifted. I'm less interested in how, he said, and more in what she plans to do with it. His gaze moved to Abeni. Abeni stood straighter. She reached for the velvet pouch and opened it. From inside, she pulled out a tiny object and placed it on the table. A child's shoe, worn, frayed, white rubber peeling from the front, one lace missing. The boardroom didn't move. This belonged to me, Abeni said. I kept losing it. I'd cry until someone found it. I remember the smell of soap on her fingers when she tied it. She looked at Nia. I thought those memories were nothing, but they weren't. Nia's chest rose and fell. She didn't cry, but her lips trembled. Abeni turned back to the others. She is my mother. Ngozi leaned in. You're claiming this formally? I'm acknowledging it. The claim was never hers to start with. Isoke's chair groaned as she stood. She will ruin you, she said, pointing toward Nia. She's unstable, a criminal. I was a mother, Nia said, finally speaking. Her voice wasn't strong, but it was steady. And I signed a paper to feed her. Don't twist it, Isoke snapped. I'm not, Nia said. I was wrong. I believed you were offering safety. I was desperate. But you wanted to erase me. I gave her a way to live. You took her to control. Isoke's face flushed for the first time. You think this wins, she said? You think a shoe and a soundbite undo a life? Abeni lifted the speaker again. She looked Isoke directly in the eye. This doesn't undo anything, she said. It just reveals what was buried. Diallo stood slowly. He looked at Isoke, then at Abeni. Do you want her removed from position? He asked quietly. Abeni didn't answer right away. She walked to her mother. She knelt. Then she took Nia's hand and placed something small in her palm. A coin. Then another. $3. 37 cents. Exactly. I owe you this, she whispered. Nia stared down at her hand, eyes wide, breath shallow. I'm not doing this for revenge, Abeni said, louder now. I'm doing this because it's time the truth wasn't punished. Diallo nodded once, then walked out. Ngozi followed. Miss Abena lingered. Do you want her escorted out? She asked Abeni. Abeni looked at Isoke. No, she said. Let her walk. Isoke didn't speak. She turned and left. Her heels rang out down the hallway, sharp, hollow, diminishing. Only when the sound was fully gone did Nia finally breathe out. Abeni sat beside her, the shoe still on the table. The skyline beyond the glass flickered. Neither spoke. They didn't have to. The door slid shut behind them. The echo faded before their footsteps did. Nia and Abeni stood side by side in the underground corridor, where the air was still cool from the night, but no longer biting. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed softly, no longer sharp. The concrete walls, once hostile, now just held the past like old breath. Neither spoke. Abeni reached down. Her hand found Nia's. Not tentative, not out of obligation. It simply fit. They walked together toward the exit ramp. The dawn was already spilling in, pale, silver, unfinished, brushing against the tiled floor, catching on the edge of Nia's shoes, warming the back of Abeni's neck. The city above hadn't fully woken, but it was listening. Outside, the air was damp with last night's fog. Everything looked softer, less certain. Street lamps blinked off one by one as the sky took over. Abeni slowed her steps. At the corner of the sidewalk, beneath a bus shelter still coated in mist, she stopped, reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a small object. It clicked faintly in her hand. A keychain, worn leather, folded. She pressed it into Nia's palm. Inside, $3.37 exact, wrapped in tissue, bound with a rusted safety pin. "Oh, I carried this for years," she said quietly. "I didn't know why. I just kept it." Nia stared down. The coins were warm. Her hand closed over them slowly, as if afraid they might vanish. She didn't say thank you. Didn't have to. "I'm giving it back," Abeni added. "Not because you owe me, but because we start over now. This was the past. I kept it safe. Now it's yours again." The world was quiet for a moment. Just wind, leaves shifting, the sound of a shutter opening somewhere down the block. They turned and walked together, their feet finding rhythm without effort. The sidewalk curved. At the end of the street stood a small cafe. Red door, a cracked window, lights just flickering on. A young man inside dragged chairs from tables with a soft screech of wood on tile. Nia stopped outside the glass. She looked down at her hands, then opened her purse. From inside, she pulled out the other half of the story. A tiny frayed shoe, off-white, a little lopsided now. She walked inside, set it gently on the edge of a shelf, next to a plant pot that hadn't yet been watered. The cashier raised an eyebrow. Nia didn't explain. She walked back out, and the door swung closed behind her without a sound. On the street, Abeni was watching the sky. The light had turned a shade bluer, the kind of blue that only arrives after a very long night. They sat together on a bench made for waiting, not talking, just breathing the same air. Above them, the windows of Isoke Tower stood in silence. No news had broken yet, but inside the email inboxes of the board members, of Ngozi, of the legal team, of the communications director, there waited an audio file, unnamed, anonymous. No introduction, no commentary, just sound. The voice of Isoke, crisp, clear, time-stamped, undeniable. By noon, a resignation would be issued, cautiously worded, "In the interest of protecting the company's future." With gratitude for years of leadership, no further comment at this time. But for now, the world remained still, and Nia was still free, truly free, not just outside, but within. Abeni reached over again, took her hand, held it in both of hers, not hard, but enough to say, "This time I won't let go." A bus passed, its tires hissing on the wet road, and they sat like that, mother and daughter, small figures in the corner of a waking city, not triumphant, but returned to each other. Sometimes the quietest stories leave the loudest echoes, not because of spectacle, not because of grand gestures or dramatic reckonings, but because they remind us of something we often forget, that love, when stripped of condition and pride, is the most radical force in the world. There are those who will measure worth by titles, by ownership, by legacy carved into stone walls or forged through institutions. But in the end, what survives, what endures, is not power, it's presence. It's the hand that stayed, the voice that remembered, the eyes that still recognized you, even when you were buried beneath years of silence. This story was never about revenge. It was about the long, unglamorous road back to truth, about the courage to face the mirror, even when everything inside you wants to look away. And perhaps most of all, it was about time. Time lost, time stolen, time reclaimed one quiet moment at a time. Forgiveness doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sits beside you in the early light, not asking for anything but a chance to begin again. And when justice comes, it may not wear a robe or bang a gavel. It may arrive as a nod, as a pause, as a simple sentence said aloud, without shame. It may come through stories retold, or shoes left on a shelf, or $3.37 passed from one palm to another. In a world that often rewards forgetting, remembering becomes an act of resistance. And choosing softness over cynicism, that's the bravest kind of strength there is. If this story moved you, if it made you pause, reflect, or feel a little less alone in your own quiet battles, we're grateful you stayed until the end. We'd love to hear what stayed with you. Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more stories that matter, and help us keep creating spaces where truth, tenderness, and resilience still have a place to breathe. Thank you for listening, and wherever you are, keep holding on to what matters, even if it's small, even if it's worn, even if the world once told you it wasn't enough, because sometimes it's exactly what brings us home.